Bob Dylan. The name alone evokes folk anthems, cryptic poetry, and a restless spirit that defied musical boundaries. He didn't just write protest songs, he dismantled old rules, scattering them across back-alley coffeehouses, smoky clubs, and the largest arenas on Earth. This isn't simply the tale of a kid from Minnesota who learned a few chords. It's the journey of a poet, a warrior whose voice turned upheaval into a global conversation. Whether electrifying the folk scene or vanishing to chase solitude, Dylan's story stands as a testament to reinvention. Teenage Dylan, still Robert Zimmerman back then, discovers the tidal wave of rock and roll. Elvis Presley records Crackle from the local diner's jukebox, stoking in him a rebellious streak. He forms short-lived bands with high school friends, playing rowdy covers in garage gatherings. The straightforward lyrics of early rock spark his own attempts at composition, though he quietly yearns for something deeper. Sometimes, he flicks through poetry anthologies at the library, puzzling over verses that echo the complexity he wants to bring to music. His father doubts the longevity of this rock craze, urging Robert to consider a practical career. Instead, the boy scrawls rhymes in spiral notebooks late into the night, conjuring images of dusty highways and weary travelers. Each new record on the radio feels like an electric jolt. If rock and roll can catapult an unknown kid into stardom, why not him? In his mind, he's already half gone from Hibbing, hitching a ride to anywhere that fosters artistic freedom. With little more than a guitar and restless ambition, he arrives in New York City. The skyscrapers loom, the subways groan, and the chilly wind slices through his second-hand coat. He sets foot in bohemian Greenwich Village, where folk melodies seep from basement cafes and beat poets lounge in smoky corners. Going by Bob Dylan now, he edges into open mic nights, playing old folk tunes and pinching the hearts of passers-by with a raw sincerity behind his nasally voice. In cramped apartments shared with fellow dreamers, Dylan absorbs the scene's fervor. He meets mentors like Woody Guthrie, an idol whose protest anthems carve Dylan's sense of purpose. On cold nights, he sits near Guthrie's hospital bed, strumming songs about dust bowls and disenfranchised workers, forging an unbreakable link between music and activism. While the folk crowd grows comfortable with purist traditions, Dylan feels the itch to push beyond. No one else sees it yet, but a revolution in sound and verse churns beneath that knitted cap. His name ricochets through the folk circles. Blowin' in the Wind cements him as a voice for civil rights, anti-war sentiments, and the disenfranchised. When he steps on stage at the Newport Folk Festival, an uncertain hush meets him, but once he begins, a wave of hush transforms into thunderous applause. Dressed in a simple shirt and jeans, harmonica rack around his neck, Dylan delivers lyrics that burn with moral conviction. While fans hail him as a modern prophet, Dylan bristles at the label spokesman of a generation. He's happy that songs like The Times They Are A-Changin rally thousands, but deep within, the contrarian spirit stirs. In interviews, he deflects or obfuscates his answers. The media wants a neat hero. Dylan wants to remain free to shape his path. After the festival, iconic figures, Joan Baez and Pete Seeger, seek to join him on stage, galvanizing protest events. But in private, Dylan jots cryptic lines in battered notebooks, restless to break from the tidy confines of folk savior. A new Newport Folk Festival performance arrives. Only this time, Dylan plugs in an electric guitar. The crowd stands stunned. Some cheer his boundary-pushing brilliance, others boo, feeling betrayed by their acoustic folk hero. It's one of the most infamous moments in music, Bob Dylan, with a rock band, blasting raw electric riffs that pierce the folk purity. Revered acts like Pete Seeger allegedly protest backstage, unsettled by the sudden surge of volume and distortion. Dylan's face shows mild amusement at the chaos. He's forging a fresh identity in real time. Albums like Bringing It All Back Home and Highway 61 Revisited break the mold with surreal lyrics, swirling organ lines, and rock rhythms. Critics label it selling out. Dylan sees it as rebirth. Like a rolling stone climbs the charts, a 6-minute epic no one expected. The spokesman label cracks, replaced by mystic poet or traitor, depending on whom you ask. But Dylan keeps forging ahead, unconcerned with who's left behind. After a grueling tour, tension with fans, and an exhausting schedule, Dylan has a reported motorcycle accident near Woodstock, stepping away from the public eye. Rumors swirl. Some say he's gravely injured, others suspect he's fine. The truth hardly matters. He seizes the moment to vanish from the treadmill of celebrity. In a rustic country home, he pen-scrawls lyrics that drift from feverish dream poems to spiritual meditations. He quietly records the basement tapes with the band, leaning into rural American roots. This hidden retreat fosters a new sense of introspection. The crowds can't see him, but they devour every rumor. He's retreated from the spotlights that once devoured him, forging a different path. Families with kids skip rope outside, while inside, Dylan's half-joking, half-earnest songs swirl in infinite directions. The once folk, once electric rebel is evolving yet again, slipping through definitions like a ghost in the night. Emerging from seclusion, Dylan delves into country music with Nashville Skyline. His voice mellows into a softer, crooning tone, shocking those who recall his biting nasal twang. The shift is jarring. Gone are the protest anthems. In their place, gentle love songs and country ballads. Some fans feel abandoned. But new audiences open up, drawn to a calmer Dylan who still sprinkles cryptic lines into otherwise sweet tunes. He navigates fatherhood, domestic comfort, and the swirl of an industry that sees him as both living legend and perpetual wildcard. Meanwhile, the 1970s dawn with cultural upheaval. Vietnam protests rage, rock morphs into heavier forms. Dylan hovers at the edges, penning songs that rarely mirror the direct activism of old. Yet the root rebelliousness remains. He's parted with bold statements, but in the quiet, he's forging another metamorphosis that nobody can fully predict. The next decade see Dylan returning to folk blues roots, releasing acclaimed albums like Time Out of Mind. The haunting track, Not Dark Yet, resonates with aging fans, while younger listeners discover his timeless, scratchy voice anew. He's hailed again as a master, winning Grammys, hooking new generations. His stage presence remains understated but vital, battered guitar, a mischievous grin, and lyrics that slice through complacency. He embarks on what journalists call the never-ending tour, playing hundreds of shows worldwide, each night's setlist unpredictable. The mainstream sometimes forgets him, but then he claims the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2016, reaffirming his place as not just a musician, but a literary titan. He graciously, if somewhat awkwardly, accepts, true to his signature aloofness. The rebellious glint remains in his eye, decades after his first steps onto a Greenwich Village stage.